He was 19 in the first wave on Iwo Jima. There were 4 guys standing in a row. Her brother got shot in the arm, and the 2 guys that were standing to his right got hit in the legs. Now, I never met him, but it's just like I know him. As the medics came to pick him up, they started to pick him up. He says, "No, take them guys, they can't walk." So he was crawling for cover of a Jeep, and he got shot in the heart and died instantly. So he gave his life for 2 other guys. War is hell. That's all I got to say. Grew up out here in Harlem, lived on Harlem Road. And when we moved out here in 1934, Harlem Road was a gravel road. I can remember my dad always listened to the Barra game, so we were listening to the Barra game, and they interrupted.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. We take you now to Washington.
The details are not available. They will be in a few minutes. The White House is now giving out a statement. The attack apparently was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. The President's brief statement was read to reporters by Stephen Early, the President's secretary. A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war. Such an attack would naturally bring a counterattack, and hostilities of this kind would naturally mean that the President would ask Congress for a declaration of war.
And the next day when we went to school, the teacher brought his radio and we listened to Congress declare war on Japan and Germany.
A state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Nearing the end of World War II, the Soviet Union would declare war on Japan and would invade the Japanese Empire through Korea. Japan would later surrender after the United States dropped 2 atom bombs in the invading Soviet Union.
President Truman would meet Stalin and discuss the Korean land. However, they could not decide on the government structure of Korea once the land was liberated.
The United States and Soviet Union would come to agree to split the Korean peninsula. The South would have a democracy set up by the United States, and the Soviet Union would set up a communist dictatorship in the North. The 2 countries would have conflict over the Korean land. The Soviet Union planned on uniting the Korean land, but the United States feared that it would succumb to communism.
I enlisted August the 11th, 1950. Another guy that my dad knew his dad. So we went, Dick Monroe, his name was, we went in to Chicago together. We had our physicals, they sent us over to the YMCA, and I kept hearing this darn train all night long. And the next morning when I could see, the L went right past the darn building, right? But anyhow, so then we go back to where we had our physicals, and they finish up with this paperwork, and they swear us in, and it's like night and day. You're nobody, you're nothing. So then they put us aboard the train and sent us to Shepherd or Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Texas, that is. Smile when you say Texas.
Bill was trained to be a ground crew maintenance worker for the Air Force. He will learn the ins and outs of the B-26 bomber.
The B-26 was a 2-engine bomber. It was developed during World War II. It was a very fast plane. Some of them had 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, 3 on each wing, and the turret, you had 2 on the top turret and 2 on the bottom turret. The engines on these were 2,800 horsepower. They were 18 cylinders. They were radio engine. That meant the engines were round. Other than that, they were pretty sturdy and reliable airplane. There wasn't a lot of work you had to do, maybe change the spark plug once in a while. And after so many hours of flight time, they'd send them back to Japan and have major overhauls on them. But other than that, they were real reliable.
The Korean War started on June 25, 1950, after North Korea invaded South Korea by crossing the 38th parallel with 75,000 men and many tanks supplied by the Soviet Union. This military action is also considered to be the first action of the Cold War. With the South Korean country quickly being overran, the United States would enter the war to fight for the South Korean country. The United States government believed if they did not stop North Korea from winning the war, more of the countries in the Asian continent would succumb to the Soviet Union way.
I was left there in December of '52, so from time I got there for basic training in August, so I was there to '52 in December, and I went to Korea. We had a 30-day leave. We went from California, and from there we shipped out. So we went under the Golden Gate Bridge. It was very foggy that morning we left, so you could hardly see the bridge. And we hit storms because it was the first part of January, and it was a rough ride. Got to Japan, stayed there for about 3 weeks, and then I was sent to Korea, to Kunsan, Korea. The base was K8, and I was in the 90th bombardment squadron.
The war would stretch out over 3 years and claim 36,914 American lives in the conflict. There are still 7,747 American soldiers unaccounted for.
A lot of action went on. We lost 6 26s during the time period I was there till the war ended. We had this one Major Titus. He would go at night flying, and he'd spot a train, and he would go out ahead of him, turn around, come back on him, put his landing lights on. And of course the train thought there was another one coming, so they would stop, or he would bomb them. Well, they caught on to that, and they had cars ahead of the engine with anti-aircraft guns on them, and they shot them down. That was one of the big losses that we had. A couple planes got shot down over North Korea, and they made it back. One of the gunners, the plane was in a dive, and he was trying to call the pilot, and he thought they had been hit, and he couldn't get an answer from the pilot. So he bails out through the bomb bays. Well, the plane pulls out and comes back home to the base, and they figure, well, where's the gunner at? But he did make it back. All he had was a .45, and he did make it back through the lines. It took him 5 days, but he got back safe. That was most of the highlights of what happened. The saddest thing that happened, though, was 20 minutes before the ceasefire was to come on, one of the F-84 pilots came in off of a mission, and they had wing tanks, and one wing tank emptied out and the other one didn't. Well, the guy in the control tower says, go out around over the sea and come in and land, jettison the full tank. Well, it didn't jettison, and he went out of control, and he spun in on the other side of the motor pool, and there was a big ball of fire, and he was killed. And the last words he says, I'm going in.
On July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed that officially ended the Korean War. Each country would suspend hostilities, release prisoners of war, and establish the demilitarized zone. This would officially end the Korean War.
When you think back, I was 23 and in charge of 6 of those planes, and you don't realize the responsibility that I had. I didn't even think about it at the time. It was just part of you do as you're told, and yours, as the saying is, yours is do or die, and not to ask why. Well, I got into Chicago. I flew from California to Chicago, and my wife and my oldest son, he was just a year and a half old when I come back, and my mom and dad and my older brother and his wife, they came and picked me up. It was, you were happy to be back.
When I started looking for classes to pick this year and to enroll in, I really didn't have anything on my mind, but I was scrolling through and I saw Vet Doc, and a really good friend of mine took this class, and I saw like all of his social media posts about it, and I was really intrigued by the class. And I took it and I was thinking, this is gonna be a really cool class to take, and I'm gonna have fun with it. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have fun with it. I was stressed, but with all this stress, I know I'm doing something fantastic for a man. And this man, Bill Beck, he gets so little credit because he fought in the Korean War. As most people know or don't know, the Korean War is often regarded as the forgotten war. And now it's clearly an important war that happened back then, as North Korea is a big threat to the United States and the freedom of our people. During the making of The Wrestling Legacy, I was supported by staying in Newnham, and I can't thank them enough for helping me. They really sat me down and got my head right into the game. And from that point on, I really excelled, in my opinion, to the point where I am now, where I can say I'm very proud of this documentary. I am proud of what I did. I am so thankful for Bill and the service. I never met Bill, and sadly, I won't. Bill unfortunately passed away recently, and that was one of the main driving forces for me to get this documentary done. Not just so I can get an A, move on with my life, it's to honor a man's legacy and his family. Because I don't think I would be able to live with myself if I went on in life and I just didn't do this man justice. So if he was here, I wish he could see this, and I hope he was proud. That's all I really gotta say to him.